Hey, it's Chris Jackman from Aberdeen Law Firm, and new chapter today, new show, and I want to talk to you today about the importance in your case, in your family law case, of hiring a lawyer and hiring that lawyer early on, and also the importance of hiring and finding the right lawyer and how you go about doing that. So those are the two things that I'd like to talk to you about today in today's show. As always, if you have questions or comments, feel free to leave us a message in the YouTube if you're watching us on YouTube, or feel free to go to our website, aberdeenlawfirm.com, and send us a message. We'd love to hear from you and get your thoughts on these really important topics. So let's start first and foremost with just the importance of getting a lawyer on your case. And the reason why I bring this up is that, believe it or not, I've read stats that have shown that close to half, a little under half, of people out there at least try at some point to handle their family law case on their own. And I can tell you from having worked with so many folks over the past 10 years that when that happens and they try to handle their case on their own, it normally doesn't go well, especially when there's an opposing attorney on the other side representing your spouse or your son or daughter's parent. This doesn't end well, and I think it's a bad idea. And so I think that the important thing to do is very early on in your case, make up your mind to hire a lawyer. And the reason why it's so critical to bring a really experienced, knowledgeable family law attorney on early in your case is that there's so much that can be done to help your case at the early stage, or earlier stages, I should say. For example, normally when clients come to us, they're, as I often tell our team, something's normally on fire. There's a parenting issue. There is a child that's maybe in danger. There's a parent that either is being asked or needs a lot of spousal support just to keep the bills being paid and stay in their home. And what I found is that it's almost like a delayed diagnosis or a delayed treatment, in that when the patient comes to the doctor, they should have gone very early on to the doctor to see if that whatever that treatment is can be done early on, and that can often save the patient. And it's a similar kind of comparison here, that sometimes if you wait long enough to go hire a lawyer, your case may be too late. And it may just be too late to try to undo the damage that's been done on your case. And again, that's especially true when your ex hires a lawyer and the lawyer is just pressing full steam ahead with filing documents in court, having court hearings, and you're trying to get these documents filed and responded to on your own. And I can tell you the law is, unfortunately, that if you are trying to do it on your own, and by the way, the legal term for that is called pro se, P-R-O space say S-E, and it just means by yourself or for yourself. You're held to the same standard as a lawyer. So even though you've probably never been to law school and never argued a case, the judge or the commissioner in your case is going to look at you just like you're a lawyer and expect that you know how to file the appropriate documents, you know how to meet the appropriate deadlines, all of those things. And so I think that you can see, and I don't probably need to elaborate too much more on this, that when you're going up against potentially a seasoned lawyer and you've never done this before, you're in real trouble. And, your son, your daughter, your home, your 401k, your life savings could all be at risk here. And that is why it is so critical you get a lawyer as soon as possible. Because if you are coming to us or there is something going on in your life that's, quote unquote on fire, meaning, you need to get access to your child, you need to get some sort of court-ordered visitation schedule, we as lawyers can do that very quickly for you. In some cases, if it's truly an emergency and we can prove it's an emergency, we can have it done the same day. Worst case scenario, it'll take a couple weeks, depending on how backed up the court system is, but it should never take months to get some sort of temporary relief for you that you may need. Again, regardless of what it is, whether it's a child support payment, whether it's a visitation. We as lawyers can get that done very quickly for you. The other thing that I see, aside from just sort of the urgency that people are coming to us with early on in their case, is trying to get access to documents. Every week I have team meetings, and we're often confronted with cases and with issues where the other side isn't giving us the documents we need to understand what's going on in the case. And that's particularly true with financial documents. So often, and I've seen this for a decade now, parents try to quote unquote play hide the ball, meaning if we're trying to figure out how much a spouse should be paying in spousal support or how much child support should be paid, it seems like invariably one spouse is trying to hide financial documents, not trying to give those documents up, because we know if those documents come out into the light of day, so to speak, and we can examine those and see, how much money someone is making, how much money someone has in bank accounts, savings accounts, or 401ks or brokerage accounts. We can do the math and fill out the appropriate court documents to figure out pretty easily and pretty simply what should be paid to a spouse or what should be paid for child support. The problem is getting access to those documents, right? Because a lot of times, no matter what we do and no matter how politely we may ask for those documents, they're not handed over voluntarily. So what I would tell you is that as a non-lawyer, there's not a whole lot you can do to get those documents. You can only politely ask someone, i.e. your spouse or your spouse's lawyer, if your spouse has a lawyer, or your parent, or the parent of your child has a lawyer. You can only do that for so long, before you either A, just get totally frustrated and exasperated with how patient you're being and how you're just being kind of stonewalled. And then you obviously run up eventually into the trial, because eventually your case is going to go to trial. And if you don't have the documents you need to be able to prove how much you should either be receiving in spousal support or child support or paying, you're really just lost, and there's not a whole lot you can do. A lawyer, on the other hand, has the ability to send what are called subpoenas, worst case scenario. There's other tools that we can use as lawyers to get these documents, but at the end of the day, if we're able to at least identify where documents or where a bank account is, or where a stock brokerage account is, or where a savings account is at a bank, we can send what's called a subpoena to get that. And all that is a legal document that forces the bank, the person, the brokerage account, the 401k account holder to turn over those documents to us. So it's one of those things where it's like you can run, but you can't hide. And that's exactly what happens when you have the power of sending in subpoenas. And unfortunately, non-lawyers just don't have that power. And unfortunately, unless you get real serious about sending those and actually send those out and hold the bank or the brokerage account, hold their feet to the fire to actually produce those documents, you're never going to know what the other side, what your spouse potentially has in their accounts. And without that information, you don't have a full picture, and you really don't know how much money you should either be paying or receiving. So, again, that is another critical reason why it is so important you hire a lawyer early on in your case. And I know it may sound paradoxical or contradictory to think, well, I got to hire this lawyer, so it's going to cost me more money. But in my experience, the truth is the opposite. In my experience, is if you get the right lawyer and you find that lawyer early on in your case, it's going to save you time and it's going to save you money, because you're going to be able to wrap your case up much quicker than if you, on your own, try to kind of fumble along and have your case drag out potentially for a year and a half, 2 years. And you may not get any farther after 18 months than you did on day one when you were trying to figure this out on your own. So again, I would really encourage you, if you're going through this process or thinking about going through the process of a divorce or a custody case with your child, even though I know it's a scary thought to hire a lawyer and it's not a fun thought, it's better just to bite the bullet, hire that lawyer, and trust that lawyer to push your case forward and get it done in the right way. The second thing I wanted to bring up in this episode was finding a lawyer. How do you find the right lawyer for your case? Because honestly, when you get on Google or when you go to websites or social media, it can be very overwhelming and it can be very hard to pick people out. And you may not trust your friend or your sister or whoever that tells you, hey, you should hire this person. How do you really know? And the truth is you don't until you sit down and actually talk to that lawyer, either on Zoom or a phone call or in person, and kind of get to know that lawyer. And I think that the questions you need to be asking of your lawyer as you interview them and figure out if they're the right fit is just figuring out, how long have you been doing this? How much of your practice is devoted to actually doing family law as opposed to family law and maybe 10 other areas of law? How specialized are you? How many times have you been to court? Excuse me. How many times have you done a mediation? And mediation is just a place where you try to settle your case. How many people have you represented? What percentage are male versus female? How many cases involve children? So I think these are the kinds of questions, really probing them about what their experience level is, how much history do they have with your particular kind of case. And I think ultimately it's also about just feeling that lawyer out and seeing how much you connect with them. Do you feel like they actually care about you? Do they ask questions about you? Or do they just kind of dictate and give you strategic advice? Because on the one hand, strategic advice about what you should do is certainly necessary and helpful, but you really want to have a lawyer who asks about you and your well-being and understands that how you're feeling and what you want to do with your case is the most important part. And I can tell you at our firm, with our team, we really try and we strive to kind of get to know people and to hear and feel what they're going through emotionally, what they're scared about, what they're afraid they're going to lose, or what they possibly could lose if things don't go their way. And we come up with a strategy and a game plan to address those fears. And sometimes we're very honest in that we cannot help them. And I think that it's also, you also will know that you found the right lawyer when they tell you what you need to hear and not what you want to hear. And sometimes, again, that means in some rare cases, we tell our clients that, we don't want to take your money because we can't help you. For whatever reason. It may just be that the law for your particular case just isn't on your side. Or it may be, as I mentioned a moment ago, that you just waited way too long to hire a lawyer and the damage has been done. But I think ultimately you want a lawyer who is not only going to fight for you and really advocate for you, but you want a lawyer who's going to be honest with you about what your realistic chances are to accomplish whatever it is you're trying to accomplish in your case. Because that's one of the big things I see, is I see some folks coming in with just unrealistic expectations about what can be done. And the right lawyer will address that and give you an honest assessment about what they think is likely going to happen in your case based on their experience of having done similar cases. So the long and short of it is there's nothing wrong with getting on Google, getting on Facebook, asking family, friends, coworkers, but ultimately, no matter where you're finding these attorneys and how you're kind of sourcing them, it's not a substitute or replacement from just having a long talk with them to figure out, is this person really going to give me the best advice? Are they in my corner? And do they really care about me? And those are things that don't come across on a website. They frankly are things that necessarily come across through a word of mouth referral. They're just things that you've got to pick up on when you actually talk to that lawyer. So just to recap what we've talked about today in short or in brief, we've talked about trying to make sure as early on as you can that you get a lawyer on your case and kind of resisting the temptation or the impulse that you might have to think that you can do all this on your own, because you probably can't. And I'm just saying that from having done this for well over 10 years now. And the second thing that we talked about today is the importance of finding the right lawyer, someone who's experienced in your area, someone who's compassionate, and someone who's going to give you honest advice. Those are things that you want to look for when you interview and talk to a lawyer. If you have questions, concerns, or you want to comment and you're listening on or watching on the YouTube channel, please leave it below. We'll get back to you immediately and see if we can help you. If you have any other questions at all, feel free to go to our website, aberdeenlawfirm.com. Reach out to us. We'll get back to you immediately. And until next time, We'll talk to you soon. Take care.